Hey there, it's Brandon, your friendly SEO at Seattle Organic SEO. We ranked number one in the Seattle area for terms like SEO Seattle and Seattle SEO in the local pack. And frankly, we do quite well and helped a bunch of other companies sell for as much as $50 to $50 million. Sorry, $50 to $500 million based off of their online visibility. So I think we know what we're doing. Currently, I also even manage 23 automotive dealerships during the day and a bunch of other clients on things like PPC, pay-per-click, and whatnot. So been doing this for about 10 plus years. And as a result, I think you can listen in and trust what I'm saying. So what we're going to talk about today is just some of the basics for SEO. So I built this primer actually for a graduate student here at uni earlier this year, and for her, and then eventually for a handful of other folks, because they were asking questions about what SEO was and how to basically leverage it. Well, I break it down mainly into two bigger buckets, and the first one here is content. So we'll talk about content as far as what it really means, and then also talk about how you can get it indexed. So frankly, when you think about content, you have to think about literally the text. Every time you search for something like basically, I don't know, healthy tips for a better life. And you can see text-wise, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about usually 10 results. But nowadays you have actually search features or search engine results page features, SERP features, which include these Q&A type of answers. And then on top of that, you have the featured snippet, which usually is pulling from one of these bottom results here, and we'll talk about how to get into the featured snippet. I have a few, frankly, that do show up there. For example, Andover SSAT average score, I think, is one of them. You'll see right here. This is my website. I got into the featured snippet, and frankly, I influence the impression or the perception, rather, of many people out there as to what is the Andover SSAT average score. Funny enough, I'm literally making facts, or what Donald Trump would call fake news, by literally showing up here for this particular question. But we'll get to how you do that here in a little bit. So back to the other items. There's images, there's video. It really kind of depends on the intent. And when I mean intent, I'm talking about like when you're searching for certain things, there's different things that show up. So for example, let's say I want to learn more about the Avengers movie. You can see there's tons of different types of SERP features, search and results page features. And so it's not just text or websites, it's images, it's literally information about how to actually watch the movie, it's reviews. This whole section over here is called the knowledge graph, and literally it's fed by different, items on the web, and Google's getting better and more robust about how to actually supply what shows up here. You can see they actually even have details about the movie stars, trailers and clips. Literally, this is one of the most colorful / more diverse sets of SERP features that sit in one particular SERP. Again, that's search engines results page. A long time ago, it was always just 10 websites or 10 links to different pages on the web. But now these SERP features have increased, because why? It really depends on the intent, like what people are searching for. And when they are searching for certain items, Google has defined these are the things that frankly, should show up in the SERP. So expect this to get more and more colorful / more and more robust. I don't know what the right term is here today, but it won't be the simple just text that it used to be. So anyway, those are things that you should note when it comes to content. And like I said, forums grow as time moves forward, so we will see other things, potentially even VR, virtual reality. And so expect those different features to actually grow. And if you don't know a lot about SERP features, just literally type in SERP features, Moz, or SERP features, SEMrush. These are two different companies that actually write a lot about it. So here they tell you about all the different features that do exist, AdWords to Knowledge Panel to Newsbox, all the different things that it's important to understand. And by the way, with this primer here today, I want to let you know this stuff is not complicated, or this stuff is not really hard to learn. Frankly, you could literally search your way to learning what SEO is. I mean, literally, SEO, what is? Or what is SEO? The best article that exists out there right now, according to Google, is this, on literally the best website, I would argue, on the web that teaches you and helps you understand SEO. It's what I used in order to actually learn more and more about SEO. I mean, this tells you all the different items that actually influence your website visibility on basically search engines. And so you could go ahead and just read and learn and empirically figure out like how it truly works. But because you're actually here today, you probably just want a quick and dirty understanding of how it works. So again, let's focus on content, and that's number one. But then the next part is credibility. So what is credibility? Well, it's the authority that your website actually has that Google determines by looking at the backlinks and other signals on the web that identify it's either a brand and or that you are building something or showing to the people out on the internet or in the world your website has some credibility. When you actually look at the original algorithm that Sergey Brin, you can see here, and Lawrence Page or Larry Page, who are the founders of Google, they identify exactly what this is. You can see that they are identifying that backlinks are how a website frankly does so well. And honestly, it's pretty intuitive. So for example, with our website, you can even figure it out by just Googling any particular brand. So for our website, you can see right below it, we have a LinkedIn page. And on the LinkedIn page, there are backlinks into our site. You can see we have something on Yelp, which basically points to our site. And as well as all these different other signals or pages that literally point back to Seattle Organic SEO. And this is what you need to do. You need to have as many potential websites out there that actually have links. And so when you build that, you will actually increase Google's knowledge that you exist, and then they will give you more and more credibility. When you actually look at Facebook or like Google, you can actually even do it this way. There's a special command. If you put site in front of it, you can see that there's all these other websites and other items that point back to literally who you are. And so, honestly, Google and Facebook have the most backlinks on the web because there are a lot of people pointing to them. And as a result, this is proof that honestly, that you have a lot of credibility. And so, frankly, when doing searches, and you can find this out in Google Search Console, you'll find out, frankly, what kind of backlinks do exist. And so the more you have, the better. And so I would argue definitely focus a bit on this, because if you don't, you won't improve in Google's minds as far as how you are as an authority. Other signals are basically citations or anything that says anything about your brand. So stepping back, one thing that's really, really important is actually choosing a brand that isn't confusing to the web as far as ambiguity versus a general term. So for example, Seattle Organic SEO is both an unbranded term and a branded term. And Google still hasn't figured it out, and that's the reason why, unfortunately, we don't have the sub-site links. So a long time ago, when I chose the name for it, I did it specifically for SEO, but I didn't consider it or think about it from a branding standpoint, like Amazon, for example, where you can see that they have site links. Okay. So anyway, do understand that your choosing of your brand can be critical to SEO as well. So these are the two things: content and credibility, and if you need, we'll go into more detail about these and how to acquire them. But we needed to make sure that you understood this before jumping into SEO. The next thing that's very important in becoming a larger and larger piece of SEO is frankly the technical aspects. And this is maybe some of the stuff that, people who come to today's video are actually looking for. But they're pretty simple. I just call them 3 S's: speed, security, and schema. Now, speed is pretty obvious. Choose a fast host, web host. If you don't, unfortunately, Google will kind of penalize you for the fact that your web page actually loads slow. People don't want to wait around to actually see your website, on mobile, on desktop, whatever. So make sure you choose a very, very fast host. Number 2, make sure you also have a secure website. So not HTTP, but it has to be HTTPS. SSL, which is basically a layer that makes sure that your website has less holes in terms of security. And so that should be a very basic item. And if you haven't done it yet, go and do it now. It might be a little bit extra money, but it will be worth your time because Google will give you more credit. There's other elements here behind the scenes, like how long have you owned your domain? Like, is it a mature domain? Did you just buy it yesterday? So Google can determine things like that. They can also even determine where the website's coming from, so they can actually look at what web hosts you're actually using. Unfortunately, if you're sharing a server with a bunch of porn sites, they might actually associate you with them. And so it's really important to actually choose a strong web hosts. So that's why we host our website on WP Engine, which is one of the best. It's what our partners use, and frankly, you should use web hosts like that. So for the startup that we do, we actually use AWS. So it's considered probably the most the strongest corporate solution at this point. And so you want to pick those very carefully in order to make sure that you show up not only fast, but also very secure. And the last thing here in terms of technical, just from the basic standpoint, because there's a lot, if you look at what we talk about as far as factors, there are literally lots and lots of content that exists on the web that identifies this, but there are literally 200 plus factors, if not more. Google's algorithm is so complex that frankly, it's hard to literally hit every single one here. And I would argue that it's important to probably hit the main big ones for now, and then once you get those figured out, you can go through the rest of the list. But the last part here in terms of technical is learn your schema. So think of kind of the rules in which that they define each of the different content that you do put to the web. And honestly, there are certain types of content, and if you tell Google what they are, there's a higher chance that potentially it will show up with that type of content. And so you'll see things from pricing information to FAQs or other things that literally they've been able to define. And so if you understand your schema and you identify it on your website, then you can potentially show up a bit better because you'll satisfy or satiate Google's needs, which is one thing that's very, very important. Another part that's here that or rather in the technical space that I don't talk about here today, but I just want to make sure it's important to note or that you do note it, and that is make sure your website is indexable. So what I mean is, make sure that the website can be crawled, or at least Google will know about it. And one way to really quickly do it is sign up for that Google Search Console account that I probably have told you already. And if you haven't learned about it, you just want to sign up, and then you literally want to tell Google that you exist. And then when you are in Google Search Console, you want to make sure that you have a sitemap on your site, and that Google can crawl that sitemap on a regular basis to see if there's any updates to your pages. Because you can't be voted on if you didn't sign up and actually become a candidate. And that's what indexing is if Google doesn't know you exist on the web, they have zero clue that your web pages exist, even the new ones, then they're not going to be able to put you in the different the search engine results pages. So it's very, very important that you are able to make sure that your site is indexable. Okay, so I went through that pretty quickly. Frankly, there's other things that we can consider as far as digital marketing. But in terms of SEO, again, it's just content, credibility, and technical aspects that support both of the content and the credibility. So that's it from me today. I hope that wasn't too verbose, and also I hope that that was relatively clear. I can go through specific examples here moving forward, but I also don't want to necessarily expose weak websites out there, especially if they're yours. And so happy to do it, more directly, but also I'm doing so many things these days. Unfortunately, I don't have as much time to put these videos together, but I've been meaning to do this for a long time for a good friend of mine, and here you go. See, I won't name your name, but hopefully this makes sense. And then if you have questions, please let me know. Put them in the comments. Do whatever you want. Email me if you truly feel like you need some specific questions addressed. I don't know what you guys are all thinking when it comes to these videos, but I'm trying to do my best to hopefully feed you with the information that can help you hopefully get more visible like we are. So literally, again, just showing a quick example, but if you search Seattle SEO, here we are. If you choose SEO Seattle, here we are. So organically, we do quite well. And then Search Console wise, I can show you very briefly. Got to switch this out to, unfortunately or fortunately, our SEO agency. And you will see, finally, just to kind of, make sure that you know that we're not joking here by any means. And, we've actually been successful at doing this. Sorry, that's the startup that I haven't spent enough time on, which I will be doing here shortly. But if you look at Seattle Organic SEO, you can see that, frankly, we get a bit of traffic for our brand. Basically, other topics that we've done a lot of blogging to. These are some of the pages that actually do acquire some of the traffic. And actually, this is a goal that you should always have. Your homepage should hopefully not be number one. It should be actually the content or other things that you want to be shown for. Homepage could be number one if you really, really want, but then you want to make sure your homepage has everything possible on it that will actually convert visitors. But frankly, instead, we have lots of different topics that we blog on or other content we've basically built and, have literally shown the web that we have it, and so therefore, frankly, people come to the site. And lastly, here's just a real quick purview. You can see that we show up number one for our brand. For SEO Seattle, it says number 4, but that's because that is the set of results that are in the other part of the SERP. So what I mean is they're not tracking this, but they're tracking down below. And so interesting, there's a new website that actually has started to show up. You can see us here in a lower position. So this is actually decreased over time, and I can tell you that this is a very complex algorithm when it comes to these particular pages. And these guys are doing everything they possibly can to outdo us, which makes a lot of sense, but we don't care as much because we're always showing up where it's very important. So yeah, just wanted to show you briefly, we kind of know what we're doing, and this is with very little effort, by the way. So hopefully you can leverage this, and hopefully we'll be able to help you get higher in the search results. All right, thanks for joining us here on Seattle Organic SEO's little, primer on SEO 101. We'll do our best to expound on this and help you even more.